Welcome back, everyone, as we are about to jump into the Weavers versus the Wardens. This feels like the one time I should introduce myself as William just to keep the W's, but like no one, it even, like it says it there, I'm going to tell you, every single time I'm up here, or if I'm on cast, it's like up there, and I can guarantee like 90% of chat still doesn't know my name is William.
Well, he's William.
I am William.
I'm Wobby for now.
Wobby.
Yeah.
Is Bobby short for anything?
Robert?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's my middle name. Did you know that?
I do now.
Yeah, so I could also be Bobby. We could be like, I could be Billy and you could be Bob. This is a really bad bit. Why did I go in on this? Weavers and Wardens are going to be coming up next. It's going to be a really fun one to watch. Again, we mentioned it, but a lot of name power, I think, on both of these squads. Winner of this one's going to go to Group C and join the Storm, who we just watched defeat the Valhalla Valkyries. Loser is going to go up against the Aru Scorpions and have their opportunity to still make it to Group C. Again, double elim. But it's going to be a more precarious path to get there, especially after what we saw from the Scorpions earlier today. You got to be a little worried about them.
Yeah, and this is if you win, you elevate yourself to Group C. Group C is where you can actually make your way into that final SEC versus SPL bracket to go to Worlds. But starting here, looking at these two teams, as you said, a bunch of name power here from both sides. Names you should recognize: Delnyyy, console legend; slaaaaaasH, nnog, ELLEON, legend in general.
Yeah.
Tubahh, we'll skip over him. Going to the other side, looking at the Weavers: ELLEON, Trypno, InMyZen, and Remakami. All of these players have been competing in SEC now, or SPL in ELLEON's case, have been competing in SEC, and they've slowly but surely been climbing up the ranks. Like, there was a time when this was like an SEC 5th seed, and now they've worked all the way up to 2nd seed. So shout-outs to them, but yeah, this is a game I'm very excited for.
Yeah, it really does feel like, you know, you got two, I would argue, like the biggest names are ELLEON and ELLEON, right? Because those two not only have been around for a while, but they've proven themselves on a lot of instances. Yeah, as well. So there's a lot of, I think, a lot of fun to be had in there. But, like, as you had mentioned, like Delnyyy, Tubahh, Zen specifically, like a lot of these guys have been around for years and years and years and putting the grind on. So to become, in the Weavers case, the number 2 seed, or in the Warden's case, even at number 5, to have that much power behind you, I don't know what to expect, and the only way to find out is to jump into picks and bans here for Game 1. Very fun one. Weavers up first. And we've been seeing a lot of interesting dynamics in North America compared to like Europe and compared to the SPL even like a month ago at this point. And that kind of showcase, and plus by the time we get to Worlds, it's going to be even more different.
Yep.
There's going to be some really hardcore studying for like a week straight to try and figure out what's going on there. But, you know, your mages, specifically the thing that's caught my attention is like your Thoth, your Kukulkan, who just gets banned out here. Those two mages and those like big, long-range secure mages suddenly skyrocketing in terms of their order, both banned out by the Weavers as well as the Aphrodite. And they go for a Yemoja first overall.
I mean, Yemoja is still an incredible character with what she does. So you pick her, you're comfortable taking her. She has some weaknesses. I think SEC players have a harder time playing compared to the SPL players. I think when you see a SPL Yemoja, you think, wow, this is the best character in the game. SEC players can still pilot her incredibly well, so I think it's a very valuable first pick. But you compare it to what the Wardens get in these top two: Chernobog, Raijin, probably one of the best solo laners, and then probably the best god, or one of the best gods in the game overall on this Bog. And we've seen a lot of Ishtar kind of coming back too now.
Yeah.
It's like Anhur, Chernobog, and then like Ishtar's like right there, Rama maybe.
And I'm a big fan of watching the Ishtar just in general. I feel like her ultimate is one that it's not super flashy unless you get like a huge stun, but in the middle of a team fight, it can be really, really helpful for everybody on the squad. And that kind of brings it, you know, like Ishtar, we'll see sometimes the ult, you know, you just beads it, whatever, and ignore it. Cherno, it really has been depending on how well it gets used. And some teams we've seen utilize it a lot better than others. And I'm thinking even like an example in the SBL, Leviathans. You give them Cherno, Shinto's going to ruin your life. But if you threw it maybe over to the Gladiators, you might be able to handle it a little bit better. And I feel like that's what the Wardens are going to have to fight against here. Prove that it's worthwhile. Especially now that they have gone for an Anhur alongside it, which means that, I mean, both of them have played mid. Both of them have played long lane. Do you have a preference of one over the other?
I like the Chernobog in mid. I think getting it that farm earlier gets it to a spot where it can carry the game. I think a lot of the times you can just avoid that fight in mid with this Anhur. So a lot of players aren't really taking that Anhur and putting it towards mid, put it in duo, win that 1v1. And wow, indeed, with this Thanatos now. slaaaaaasH has been really liking this Thanatos pick. And it's not too surprising. He is a 50-50 character, and I think Slash has played like a 50-50 player in a lot of his fights. There are some fights where he gets triple kills, quadra kills, and then there was a fight yesterday where he got a triple kill and then blinked under the Phoenix by himself in a 1v2 and died, and I was baffled because I was watching it. But he makes really strong plays, and then he'll sometimes follow it up with not-so-great plays. But I think Thanatos is maybe even a little underrated right now. I think that character is very strong early, and he also scales well into the late game because of the execute. So I'm excited to see this Wardens team again.
Yeah, we'll see what kind of fire they have under them here again, and especially up against a team like the Weavers. It's all going to kick off here in Game 1 as we go over to our casters.
Thank you very much to the Bobby brothers over on the desk. Supersonic Blur here, joined by Kaizo once again for another matchup. We just got done watching 6 seed take down their first seed. We'll have to see whether or not the same is capable here. Tyrian Weavers, I mean, they're looking to answer back for their wounded pride of, well, where they find themselves now. But Kaolin Wardens, like was mentioned, Slash on this Thanatos, this has been a pick that, if you've been playing ranked recently, this god is like, I just need something to ban, get rid of good pressure. Now we're going to have to see whether Slash can make that pressure work.
Yeah, and Thanatos is going to be the guy to watch, and I mean, it's kind of self-explanatory as to why. This is a feast or famine character, as Bobby was saying. Hang on, just jump in from Tubahh here, Zen under a lot of threat. Why are they still going for this?
Because at this point, InMyZen is just trying to back away. Both relics used by Promise and ELLEON in this situation. And now they're just going to try and keep this fight going. Yemoja, good with the sustain. But even that said, both members from Kaolin Wardens, they're going to jump in aggressively. They have come to play, especially in the duo lane.
Not what I was expecting. I mean, don't get me wrong, Tubahh and the Anhur, definitely a character and player combination that you can see some fireworks from, but if anybody, I thought, again, Slash would be the guy that would be getting involved earliest and most often, but apparently duo lane just wants to scrap from the word go, and from what I've seen of Zen, granted not a crazy amount, but that doesn't really seem to be within his playstyle, or at least not what we've seen from him so far in this tournament. Zen strikes me much more based on this weekend of a, you know, a scaling kind of traditional ADC where we'll see you late game, you do all the team fight stuff for us, and then everybody's all happy at the end of the day. Which doesn't really pair as well with somebody like Tubahh, who just wants to jump in, wants to say, I'm better than you, and here's why. And ELLEON is definitely, everybody knows that this guy's going to be playing aggressive. I mean, he's shifting over from jungle. Wild, by the way, that ELLEON is not only good enough at jungle, but also support, that he could play either one in this tournament and nobody would bat an eye at it. Right now, Tubah's under a lot of pressure, though.
Ooh, but ELLEON catches out the jolt. Now it's on the Promise to try and chase down Tubahh if they can. Doesn't get to be able to do so. So instead, it will just be return fire. And this is where that sustain really comes into play. Look at the health potions in regards. Tubahh completely out of them and forced away. Solo side as well.
Right.
Remakami getting a little aggressive with layers. Slash and Delnyyy very low here.
Delnyyy casting over the wall does not manage to steal away his own blue buff, so invade successful from Remakami and from Layers over there on the right-hand side. Meanwhile, left-hand side, ELLEON is babysitting the purple buff, and Promise and Shinigami look to be willing to give that one away.
Good catch.
It is a good catch, but unfortunately not a whole lot of damage to follow up, so they are going to have to back up, but bit of a more aggressive one from the Weavers, who, if I remember correctly, were kind of on the back foot yesterday in their matchup where it felt like they were kind of answering a lot of questions as opposed to asking them, and here, at least in the very early stages, they're the ones driving the force of this game. I'd have to assume that's going to change as ELLEON jumps in again. I think that's going to change once Slash, he just ticks over to level 5, should have the gold online to pick up that Jotun's Wrath and start to get involved a little bit more. Remakami, potential target for him here. But keep your eye on Slash throughout this game, man. Thanatos pretty much needs to get it done early. He might have a shot here.
He might jump on through. There's the beads forced as well. Now going up into the ult, looking for the execute. The health thresher is not there, though. And under the safety of the tower, Slash is not going to go in, but Layers is going to follow right back and answers down one. Slash gets taken down as Delnyyy cannot afford to stick around. The health bar in the red. So rather than losing 2, they'll just lose 1. But great work from Layers. I thought they weren't going to rotate it all in, but they picked their time perfectly.
And there's your feast or famine, right? For Thanatos in particular, slaaaaaasH. If he lands that depth scythe, that's definitely first blood in their favor, but doesn't land it, so doesn't manage to grab that one. And it's actually Zen under a crazy amount of pressure here.
In comes Nog on with the Living Nightmare. They'll catch InMyZen again, and he can't get through to the Riptide. The meditation will not help instead. Like you said, Zen under so much pressure, gets forced out by ELLEON's ult. Then Tubahh goes in and jumps straight in on them. Nog's also on the rotation as well. Promise tried as best they could. But it's 3 ults just to answer back in on InMyZen. That still worth it this early on, or?
Yeah, it's still fine, especially if slaaaaaasH can do something here. Blinks in Trypno, use the home sweet home and force him away. As long as nothing happens until those ults come back up, which 5 minutes into the game, pretty unlikely that something catastrophic is going to go wrong for you where you'd wish that you had those cooldowns. So landing the kill through the beads and the ult for InMyZen still probably worthwhile. And Blur, while we got a second, I mean, we probably should take another look at this Kaolin Wardens draft, because so far, all I've really mentioned is slaaaaaasH on the Thanatos, you know, play early, gotta get ahead, blah, 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 all the normal Thanatos stuff. But they've actually got the Chernobog in the mid lane, and Tubahh's got the Anhur in the ADC role, meaning double ADC composition, which not something we've seen pretty much at all recently. It's been a lot of the mages here recently, just because the mage itemization has been pretty favorable. I mean, hell, they're making their way over to the solo lane. Feels like you could play them just about anywhere. But going for this double ADC composition means that you are going to be a little bit weaker in the early game. That's just the nature of these hunters, is they sacrifice a bit of early pressure to be able to, later on in the game, just out-damage you, in particular around objective fights, tank DPS. Very, very good if you have two of the shooty boys on your team. And with Nog on this pick, I mean, they're going to be playing for some pretty late-game composition here. slaaaaaasH is realistically only there to use a American football metaphor, to give the handoff to Nog and Tubahh. He's got the ball early on. He's the guy that's going to be calling the shots. And then as soon as they see light at the end of the tunnel, start to make your way toward the late game, going to pass that one off to Nog and Tubahh and let them take it for a score down in the end zone.
I have absolutely no idea what you just said there at all. I'm assuming it means something, but
Blacked out during that.
as soon as you said it's American football stuff, I'm like, okay, so it's worse rugby. But at this point in time, we can debate those semantics another time, as Tyrian Weavers still holding themselves. And you mentioned that, like, Tubahh and Nog, they're going to do a lot of this damage. I'm concerned that can't Promise just build like a Solve and a breastplate, and then the entire team might just start building some physical defense? What's the potential threat? Because ELLEON is the only real other magical damage, and they're getting dove heavily. Blades of Retribution are good. Shell is also there. It's a good catch. And another good catch until his Promise is pulled back in deep. They will get to walk away from this one. My point is can Tyrian Weavers not just all build like a physical defense item and laugh at the Wardens?
Maybe, and we'll have to get back to that as slaaaaaasH over here in the right lane. Looking at Remakami, beads forced out, does not matter. The damage is overwhelming on the solo laner, who has no defense items online just yet, going Pythags. Even after dying to slaaaaaasH, there still goes Spellbound Kusari, so no physical defense on the way even a little bit later. But to answer your question about Promise, I mean, yes, he's absolutely going to be building, you know, Sovereignty, Midgardian Mail, Breastplate, whatever he wants to just give him an ample amount of physical defense. But the problem with that in the current meta is that you don't play Achilles in the solo lane. You're not playing Kaolin in the solo lane. You got a Raijin over there. And that Raijin, I mean, we've seen already today and throughout this whole tournament in the last several weeks or months at this point, just how much damage this character is capable of putting out, even with a hybrid itemized build. Like, even when he gets the breastplate, Genji's guard, all that good stuff, still going to be some pretty meaningful damage that's going to be coming the way of Promise, everybody else on the rest of the Tyrian Weavers. So I guess, in short, yes, you can stack physical defense against a double physical backline, but that's not going to keep you safe from Daddy Delnyyy over there, who's going to be pumping out the magic DPS no matter what.
It feels like there's a little bit of target on their back if that's going to be the case. Remakami, though, has had a rough time in this lane, but because slaaaaaasH has been the one over there, it's kind of given Tyrian Weavers, I wouldn't say carte blanche to do what they want anywhere else, but they've not exactly felt any pressure. Nog's not been able to rotate outside of that first blood that the first fight that we saw go the way of the Wardens as ELLEON rotates back on over to the left side. You mentioned this before, that the way that sort of these supports have been, they've kind of been sitting more in this duo lane for a fair bit more time. We have seen some starting to rotate out, but what's been the thought process with this? I thought Anhur wants to just take 1v1s all day.
He does, but he also wants to make sure that nobody else is coming to interfere with those. And if you leave them on an island, well, unfortunately, Blur, these junglers just cannot be trusted to just leave them alone. They will always intervene. They will always make a mess. And Zen, trying to get messy over here in the left lane, stuns out ELLEON. And looks like Layers was here if that went differently, but because it doesn't manage to lock him down effectively, Layers hangs onto the ult, doesn't get involved. But Anhur would love nothing more than just jump on an Ishtar for the rest of his life. But the problem is, Layers and the rest of the gang are always going to be nearby, and that's why you always need somebody over here.
Well, someone's come on over here, and it's nnog again. Two-man stun, though, is big. In comes the landfall, and it does pull back in from it. But Zen's getting torn down by nnog, has to hide behind the Bastion. Will do so. Take some damage from the Crystalline Curse. Gotta love to see that. InMyZen, barest of HPs, gets away. We can thank the shield buff for that one. Promise as well gets to limp back to base. And it seems that the Kaolin Wardens, they've been pressuring out both left and right very effectively.
And they've also been using Nog's ult to some pretty good effect so far. Usually a Chernobog doesn't really get talked about a whole lot until level 20, and I think it was Mifflin that said he basically changes the landscape of the game with how the character functions. But at least so far in this one, Nog already with two pretty critical rotations to the left side of the map. Doesn't unfortunately manage to land the kill onto Zen that time around, but they've only got 2 kills to their name, Blur. And one of them was because Nog rotated early and helped out in the dual lane when Zen had no mana. So already a better investment of that cooldown than you'd typically attribute to this stage of the game, as Layers contending with the idea, attempting to dunk down onto Delnyyy here, who seems to know something might be up and will just hang out in his tower. But it's the Wardens under a lot of pressure, despite the fact that they have the Thanatos that should be the early game Titan, and they have this late game scaling composition. Seems like they're exploiting the Tyrian Weavers, that is, the weaknesses of the Kaolin Wardens comp pretty well so far.
Yeah, I mean, you mentioned that kill-wise, it's only 2-1, but it's Tyrian Weavers who are still finding themselves just a little bit above on the gold. It's not much, but for the amount of fighting, that the Kaolin Wardens have tried to do, and the amount of invades that have gone on, I mean, Tyrian Weavers have done a really good job of mitigating this damage. It's like they'll get a slap on the wrists and go, "Ow, okay," and then just keep on doing it anyway.
Production, can we zoom in on Trypno? I just want to see the beans up close and personal as we go back in to this likely obelisk fight here around the mid lane. Trypno gonna dump some damage over the wall here. And that's actually an investment from Promise, which is a little bit surprising. I'm sorry, I just love this skin. This is one of the best skins in the game, Blur. You are a floating bean suspended on a piece of bacon coming out of a can. That's just delightful.
Well, what's also delightful is when you get the team to pull back in like that. Might be beans, might be toast, whether or not the ult goes through. They do land on in, but the CC immunity's there. Thankfully, Death Scythe does so much damage at this point. Trypno cannot afford that one. They'll be forced back to base. The big investment, like you said, around for the obelisk. The beacon has opened, but who cares about that? There's a Gold Fury on the map. Kaolin Wardens recognize this and say, hey, let's go for that. Actually get their foot in the door. This will get them a start of a gold lead. Tyrian Weavers are here. Kaolin Wardens do secure it, but it's a blink on through the back by Layers. Nnog goes up, down with a living nightmare. They'll find Layers' beads, and they'll find Layers' life. That's a good look for the Wardens.
It was a low percentage play for the Weavers to step in there and try to steal. If they had Ishtar ult, if they had Layers Thor ult, if they had, I guess even health bars probably would have been useful, right? Because a couple of members were already pretty low as they walked into that, but unfortunately, they had none of those things, so it was a low chance that ended up paying off. They do end up going for it regardless, and Weavers unfortunately get punished for it, as Wardens not only get the objective, but also the beacon that the fight was really over to begin with. The Gold Fury, more of an afterthought, despite being a little bit more valuable. The Wardens are suddenly doing a much better job of transitioning themselves into this late game stage. I do think that the Weavers aren't going to be upset if this one goes late. Like, make no mistake about it. Yemoja is one of the premier supports, if not the premier support that doesn't get banned in the game. Layers on this Thor tends to struggle around the siege defense stage of the game, but up until that point gets a ton of value. Baba Yaga, Ishtar, more characters that are very happy to just scale up. So it's not as though, you know, late game double ADC comes online and the game is over. They very much can fight back in and probably are pretty satisfied with getting to the late game, even if they're only at a 1, maybe 2k deficit. So the Weavers not sounding the alarm bells just yet, but definitely probably prefer that things were going a bit differently.
Yeah, I mean, that's a fairly common statement for anyone saying, you know, if the things gone differently, they'd already be winning the game at this point.
True.
But like you said,
If they
they're not
killed the Titan
panicking
by now, they would have won.
Yeah.
Now.
Exactly. I mean, it's all shoulda, coulda, wouldas. But like you said, they're not panicked like, oh my god, we haven't won the game yet. Now we're never going to win the game. They still scale up fairly well into the late stages of the game. Remakami and Delnyyy, between the two of them, you mentioned a lot of the damage that Delnyy's able to put out and things. Remakami isn't exactly a slouch either on that regard. A little bit of HP as well, and I think it's going to come down to how well slaaaaaasH can use that ult. Late game becomes a bit more of an less of an execute and more just a threat to start an engagement, but at this point in time, it's a straight up down from both junglers, and it doesn't matter because Layers gets just deleted. Nog followed over as well, so slaaaaaasH cleans up too.
Delnyyy finds the V, E, and L keys on his keyboard after that engagement's over as well, making sure that Layers is well aware of the fact that he didn't land that kill successfully. And now, with this advantage, I mean, it's a 2-for-0 and they're already over here. Why not start contending with this Fire Giant? Looks like dual lane going to be very late on rotation. Only Trypno to play defense.
And at this point in time, he's just getting forced away. slaaaaaasH is low enough DPS, but look at everyone else. They're starting to make their way in. Home sweet home damage is there. But Tyrian Weavers stealing away! Wicked Witchfire! You cannot be allowed to do that. I thought Kaolin Wardens were just going to take the fight. But they 50-50 it. And for 333 damage, Wicked Witchfire gets Tyrian Weavers their foot back in the door. They've just broken it off its hinges.
And Trypno pulled in here. Might get punished for his transgressions. Got in the air. Slash lands in.
Beads Aegis used on Layers, just trying to disengage at this point. Nog's damage is going, but Layers might look to re-engage on this. Straight up, straight down, finds 2, but it's just an Aegis.
Just an Aegis for now, as the Wardens have to retreat. Tubahh will awkwardly off to the side, and Zen spots him out, gonna drop the ult. Tubahh does successfully jump over. That could have spelled bad news for him. But Blur, I'm flabbergasted. I'm truly chuffed that they just let them walk into the FG pit for free. I think Trypno 1v4 should never be allowed to steal that one away. Might have to hold that thought. Weaver's trying to grab this Oni Fury.
Can they do it as well? Kaolin Wardens, they'll just go ahead and grab that one away with the Raijin and Taiko drums. I mean, hey, it's a fair... Is that even a fair trade at that point? Fire Giant for a Fury at this early in the game? I was going to say a fair trade is no robbery, but...
It's okay. I mean, you're glad you at least got something if you're the Wardens, but I'm just still shaking my head over the fact that they spot Trypno out incredibly early. They knew duo lane was all the way in duo lane. Like, they had vision of them walking across the map and knew that they would have pretty substantial amount of time to work with, and yet they still just let Trypno walk in, and Remakami should just be murdered here, surrounded by 4 people. You got Layers in the air, but I doubt he lands in as everybody else disengages. But if Trypno's there by himself and you've got everybody else spotted out on the map, I don't see a reason not to, like you said, Blur, just take the fight and then do the objective after the fact. You're dealing with one backliner who, yes, has a prophetic cloak, but not fully stacked up, already used the ult and walked into the Fire Giant pit with the ult active without trying to steal it. I feel like the Warden's just a little bit careless there and definitely got punished for it.
Yeah, that's always a big one I like to think, is it's not a misplay if you're not punished for it, and they have been punished for it at this point, as Delnyyy sitting under half health at this point in time. This is all over a Pyromancer that the Kaolin Wardens do grab themselves. Taiko drums used very early in the back as well. So the rest of this fight, ELLEON is trying to pick up the buff and then leave. Goes for a landfall, picks up Layers, but the health bar is looking a little worse for wear, so it is just going to be the retreat. Tyrian Weavers can't go much further.
It's not every day that you Maui ult Frenzy while you walk away from an engagement, but ELLEON burns both of those cooldowns on his way out and make sure that nobody wants to pursue him into the gauntlet of those frenzied ADCs. And that is going to be pretty significant later on in this game. Don't forget that in addition to the damage that we always attribute with Frenzy, also a pretty significant amount of attack speed that one's going to be giving both of these backliners for the Kaolin Wardens, and making sure that Remakami, who already hybrid to begin with, is not going to have a good time trying to be a straight-up frontliner. Even Promise is likely not to last long when standing in front of the shooting range quite like that. And Blur, the Weavers, with their Fire Giant buff, which they've stolen away, haven't really done a whole lot yet. I mean, they showed up to a Pyromancer, they forced the Wardens to back up, they almost took a fight in right after Remakami died and got his buff stripped off, but after that, it's been pretty quiet so far. They're about to expire the Fire Giant timer, in fact, and get really no value out of it. They don't even get like a tier 1, a tier 2, nothing. It's just a stopgag more than anything else for the Tyrian Weavers, preventing the Wardens from developing a lead, I suppose. But with FG spawning in another minute or so and how confidently the Wardens are playing, you gotta assume that some objective fight is coming pretty soon.
Indeed, and the way that they've been playing this slash, I just absolutely love this Dana. You mentioned all this feast or famine, gotta get online early, but that execute threshold just means that every single person is playing with 40% less health in the late game. It doesn't matter if Nog or Tubahh can't take him down, Slash is always going to be there to provide that potential fight as Kaolin Wardens. Again, ELLEON goes for the fight. It's been on to Trypno, who has been very quick on these ults as well. Now that ult cooldown is gone, that's a big bit of survivability down for this Baba Yaga.
Does have a decent amount of cooldown in the build, 20% let's call it, so won't be too terribly long before that one comes back up. Should be in time for either one of these objective fights, but I mean, we're already level 20 on the mid laners in particular, and that's perhaps more important for Nog than the average mid laner, because that means it is split push time. It looks like Layers is going to be the one tasked with defending that split push, but if Nog determines that he's in too much trouble or they get an opportunity on right, one living nightmare could change this game.
It very well could, and look at the target focus. It's on Trypno. No ult means no survivability. Now Nog makes the rotation on in. Layers may be here, but it may be too little too late. Remakami trying to backpedal out with the ultimate to disengage. Does get to do so, but look how far the Wardens were able to push deep into the enemy jungle. They can go back towards Fire Giant. Delnyyy takes a little bit of damage from Layers. You can shrug that one off. Instead, though, turn the attention to the Kaolin Wardens, to the mid lane tier 1 tower. These double hunters, structures, objectives, players, all of them fall if they get enough time with the two of them there.
Yep, not a whole lot of time that the Wardens are going to need in order to bring down anything. Showcase a little bit of that over here on the Gold Fury, but don't forget Fire Giant might suffer a similar fate if the Weavers aren't grouped up around it in time. And they're gradually developing this lead Blur, which is really how you need to play this. You know, the 18 to 25 minute mark in the game tends to be a bit of a problem point, especially for less experienced teams, but even obviously people at the top level, just because it's such an awkward stage of the game where you don't quite want to farm because you feel strong, you have your power spikes, but you also aren't quite strong enough that you're confident that you can just pull a Fire Giant in front of the enemy team. And that's realistically all you have the option for if these other neutral objectives are down. I mean, they grabbed the Gold Fury, Pyromancer, not under threat yet, but likely to be scooped up without a whole lot of whimper from either team. And it's really difficult to determine, do we play more aggressively? Are we supposed to wait for them to make a mistake? Are we spreading the map? Looks like the call is going to be the last one of those, at least for the time being. Nog does have the ult back up, and Layers once again going to be responsible for being on Nog duty. If he's not careful, that ult, that living nightmare, man, this is what makes this character so good. Just saying, you have to be here, and if I don't want to be here, I don't have to.
It's been so well played from the Kaolin Wardens. They're just trying to constantly put this pressure. They're not trying to take a fight. They're letting the Tyrian Weavers decide how are they going to play it. They've threatened Pyromancer. If it doesn't go their way, that's not a huge deal. As another landfall comes on out. It's been so good at getting these damage dealers ults in response as Nog constantly putting pressure around. Kaolin Wardens still get themselves this runic bomb they can now play around with. It's a 4v4 around the Fire Giant. Layers pushed back. not able to sustain with the range game from nnog. So now they're actually just pressuring in. He's got a runic bomb himself. Is he just going to get this Phoenix himself? Not
Got
quite.
it very low.
It's close. And now look where he's going. He's going straight on over because the fight in right has started. Slash is in the sky looking for a target. They're all grouped. But instead, it will be the disengage as the rest of the team start to recoalesce. They couldn't go towards Fire Giant. But if Tyrian Weavers see that they've backed off, they might be going for it themselves.
Hello. The Wardens
I love this.
are just backing. They're just letting them walk into the pit and start pulling this. Tubahh and Slash are here, but this is already half HP.
Such a good pickup from the Tyrian Weavers, recognizing Kaolin Wardens to disengage. They've got this Fire Giant down to about 30%, but now they're trying to take the fight instead. Layers find Slash around the back, taking him down to about half HP. Titan, or Fire Giant, excuse, is still low. Slash is gone thanks to Remakami, as Promise is eating a brunt of damage, mostly from environmental stuff, because Layers is in the back. They've dismantled one of the Hunters. They might dismantle a second one. Trypno is the answer for it. 5 members stand strong for the Weavers. Kaolin Wardens could not come back soon enough.
I'd love to hear the Warden's comms in that fight, because I assume it must have been chaos. ELLEON does have the ult though, Blur, and he is stepping up for this.
Yes, it's just the back or the front line left. No back line for the Kaolin Wardens. Remakami on zone duty right now. ELLEON eating a brunt of damage. This Fire Giant is being used as a bait. It's a honeypot trap, but it's gone wrong! Are you kidding me? ELLEON steals Fire Giant with solar. I'm done. I need a stiff drink, man. What was that?
I'll take a whiskey on the rocks while you're making it, man, because that is... should not happen. Full stop. I mean, you have way too many people with way too good of burst damage for that to ever be stolen away by a Maui 3 of all things. Like, he didn't... It wasn't even the landfall. He used the landfall and it wasn't on time. Remakami's gonna pay for the sins of the Tyrian Weavers, but it is shocking to me.
Slashes up, finds InMyZen. It's the stun that's all that matters, but a great River's Rebuke stops the follow-up through. Now it's just bailing out as fast as they can. The pings are coming through because Slash knows exactly where Zen is. But even so, Kaolin Wardens, technically with the Fire Giant, it may only be on one, but it's not on 5 members of the Weavers. My goodness gracious me. And it's still an 8k gold lead for the Kaolin Wardens here. This is Seed 5 versus Seed 2, man.
I don't know if you saw that. Delnyyy cast like 6 ticks of damage into that green buff without realizing it was immune to damage. I don't know. I just thought that was funny. But let's rewind a bit and go back to that fight, because the Tyrian Weavers get the engage from the Wardens and manage to survive it is essentially what their game plan was there. And that's what happens when nnog ults over there. Like, all right, we need to disengage. Layers is not here. We can't take this fight. And the Wardens go, all right, they backed up. Let's reset. So the Weavers got to step into the FG pit and get some pretty dominant pit control and good damage off. And the Wardens weren't sure if they wanted to contest, if they wanted to fight, if they wanted to go for the objective. They ended up losing a lot of HP for it. It is miraculous that that ends up paying off for them.
Layers
will take a bit of damage there. And hello, nnog?
Whoa. Okay, nnog just says, yeah, let's keep the fight going. I thought that was all just to pressure Layers out to stop him getting a good flank on the ult, but instead, they'll turn around and spank him right the way back to base instead. Nnog with the Living Nightmare. That is such good damage recognition, just saying, I can kill him, and then follow up with the blink from Slash. Absolutely love it, because now the Titans have started walking down the lanes as well, and they're in a 4v5.
They are, but it's only for 30 seconds or so, and Layers held on to the Aegis, does still have the ult when he respawns, and gonna take some time for these Titans to make their way down the lane. I don't suspect that Layers will not be of it. Hello, they frenzied the Titan. They're just pushing all kinds of buttons over here for the Kaolin Wardens. Obviously not wanting Layers to respawn in time, but after that, they just back up. And the shot calling from the Wardens is like transcendental to me, because I can't wrap my head around it. It's working. I mean, they're 5-10 and they're very much ahead this game, but I don't know, some head-scratching plays for them that have just worked out in their favor. So all the more credit to them. And they've gotten to the point that they wanted. Their whole composition was designed around, all right, Slash, get us to late game, and then both of the ADCs will just do a bunch of damage. And Slash got them to the late game, and now the ADCs get to do a bunch of damage. Like, this is where you want to be with the double ADC composition, is in a winning or even position, being able to play around sieges and being able to hit a bunch of structures. You shred these towers so incredibly quickly with double ADCs. If it's even one misstep from the Weavers where Layers is out of position when the Titans are not coming, for example, that is absolutely a Phoenix gone in favor of the Kaolin Wardens. So the Weavers have to be a lot more careful with their positioning from here on out.
Certainly looks to be that way. And you mentioned they got them to the late game. It's not even, it's with an 11k gold lead. Recipes still being used to try and give Tyrian Weavers a semblance of a full build. But look on the other way. Sturdy Stew is the last item or last recipe for ELLEON. And even then, it's still a pretty good one at that. Everyone else is completely kitted out, just working on relics at this point as Kaolin Wardens again go for this exact same kind of a play. Promise forced away with the Magi's there. Some good CC. But we've seen this happen 2 times before. Nog is going to threaten this Phoenix. Doesn't have the Runic Bomb this time, so it's not quite as big a threat. But as far as Layers is concerned, he's still pushing up right now. So whether or not they see Nog doesn't matter. They've even been pinged out towards the Oni Fury as well. Kaolin Wardens, they're just trying to bait Tyrian Weavers into one misstep. And as soon as that seems to happen, it's go time.
They have a lot of toys at their disposal here. That Oni Fury is going to be very big for them if they can get Nog to get that one successfully. It doesn't look like anybody's going to head that way from the Weavers, so they should be able to grab that one for free. And between Nog split pushing and the Oni Fury and now the enhanced Fire Giant on the right-hand side of the map, punishing the Wardens for the Weavers is going to be a very tall order here. They have to somehow respond to Nog's split push early, catch him out in the jungle, ignore him and take the fight on right and win it convincingly, or I don't even know what a third option would be, because that's what this Chernobog does to you, is it forces you to answer questions that you don't really have the solutions to. What are you supposed to say when they say, you know, all right, Nog, push up with the Oni wave and then we'll win a 4v5 once they send somebody to contend you? It looks like the Weavers are just going to let him push, but that means whatever fight they take over here, if nobody backs to defend Nog, they have to win it incredibly convincingly.
Yeah, I mean, as well as, don't forget the fact that there's minions pushing down the mid wave. Tyrian Weavers basically off of this Fire Giant pit the entire time, unless they want to give up so much map pressure. I'm surprised the Kaolin Wardens haven't tried to at least initiate something. Not losing does not mean you are winning in these engagements, so instead kind of stalemated out. They get Layers so low just from basics alone, and now pushed back as far as they are. Nog will beads away, go on, slip on into the wall. But with that down, Layers might look for a turnaround play. Aegis used, and he's actually killed! No! No! You had ult! What? Kaizo, I thought the whole point was he goes into the ult and joins the team! What happened? What?
Yeah, I mean, that was the idea. I don't know. Nog made a different call, I guess. He thought that he could win the 1v1 with Layers, which, to be fair, was going incredibly well until that point. Let's call a spade here, Blair. That was... He almost got the bird and killed Nog at the same time, but... Because he takes a spill there instead, yes, you get good damage on the bird, but now you're fighting 4v5 in this FG pit.
They are. Slash still hovering around the corners, not in the hovering death just yet, because they found a little bit of a fight with Layers, it seems. Now we'll go into it because the execute's there. And with a little bit of a health shield coming through from Bloodforge, they might be able to loop back around. So it's a 4v4 now for the Kaolin Wardens and Tyrian Weavers.
Split push.
Yeah, look at it. Slash has got a little bit of life still. Slash has got pressure in the mid lane. And Slash can go and take this fight. Landfall cuts off the pathway. This Kaolin Wardens, this is just buying time. Absolutely love this.
This is so smart from them because the Wardens are forcing them to stay in this pit. They don't want this fight, and they probably lose the fight, but they force the Weavers to stay there long enough that you can get the bird in mid. And if nobody backs anytime soon, and we'll see if the Wardens will step up to try to prevent that from happening, you could also get that bird in left. Looks like Slash will have members coming his way and will have to get out, gets the call that everybody has already recalled, and will have to head back toward the FG pit. But Slash wins the 1v1 against Layers and then gets to split push the mid bird. That significantly weakens the base of the Tyrian Weavers and makes it so that further split pushing even more effective. And now they are the ones in the FG pit with all of the pit control.
Delnyyy? Delnyyy dashes in aggressively on 4, eats most of their health bar, but so does Zen, and Zen gets taken down by the execute, followed up with a death sight. Slash will fall in response. Layers is up. Where do they land? They try and find Delnyyy in the back, and they do so successfully. However, both the ADCs are still alive, and well, ELLEON keeping the rest busy. Means that these two hunters are around. They'll close the gap a little bit more. Trypno pulled on back in, forced to beads. ELLEON leading the charge again,
Nice.
but nnog over the wall. Trypno finds the damage, now being pelted with autos from Tubahh here. It's a 3v4 situation, but the health bars are not going well for the Tyrian Weavers.
And now Tubahh's gonna jump in alongside ELLEON here, gets the good knock up, and that's good damage. On to Remakami, chalk up one more for the ADC.
And look at this, ELLEON's just going to keep Trypno busy, because the whole idea is that Tubahh can't stick around, but Tubahh can't afford to let it go as he finds the fadeaway shot from behind. ELLEON now, this is for retribution here. May not be playing Nemesis, but he'll go for the 1v1 here. He'll force Aegis, and it's almost all she wrote, but there comes the ultimate back. ELLEON may have gotten a little bit too aggressive.
How do you see with all those beans in your face, man? I don't understand it, but Trypno made magic happen in that fight, frankly, because he gets two incredible turnaround kills there at the end, taking down both of the hunters from the Kaolin Wardens. First of all, grabbed the kill onto nnog around the speed buff corridor when they were chasing him down, and then wouldn't you know it, kills the other guy with another bean while they're chasing him down around a different speed buff corridor. So credit to Trypno for making something out of nothing. That could have been very, very bad for the Tyrian Weavers. If he dies there without getting those 2 kills, it could be the end of the game. You definitely lose either a Phoenix or EFG, depending on whatever the Kaolin Wardens would prefer. But because Trypno makes a couple of incredible individual plays in a row, and the Kaolin Wardens end up getting punished for that some over-aggression that was going the direction of the Weavers, they do manage to not lose anything further. They do still have the bird down in mid, which is still difficult situation for them to contend with, but because Trypno lands those kills, don't have anything worse going for you. And the Wardens might be reevaluating the game plan here. They were just sending nnog straight to the FG pit to begin with, and, you know, we'll fight like a normal 5-on-5 composition, but, well, that didn't work so great for you. Slash made another individual play and killed Layers to get the bird to begin with, but if it weren't for that, things weren't going so hot. So instead, nnog returns to this left-hand side of the map, forcing Layers to make his way over there as well. Take a look at this blur. Look who's shadowing nnog on the way over. It's going to be Slash, once again, trying to make his claim onto Layers.
He does. This is that adaptation that you wanted to see. Now it's Layers fighting nnog. And we know how that goes. If nnog doesn't stand still and let Layers hit him with abilities, he will win that fight. But even so, by putting 2 members over here, it means that if Layers tries to step up, he will be punished again. This Phoenix under a little bit of duress, but there it is. The blink on through, misses the death sight. That could be a problem. But thankfully, though, they will just trade out 1 for 1. But even so, that 1v1 situation, mid Phoenix is back up. And Kaolin Wardens, they tried to change the tune a little bit. But that was more like a modulation rather than a completely different song. Tyrian Weavers, they know this song and dance, and they are comfortable fighting into it.
Promise gets the CC immunity forced out there. Blades of Retribution for disengage, sprint, and Baba Yaga hold. They gotta get out of here.
They do. Remakami, though, has been turned and burned down a little bit. Aegis will buy him a little bit of time. Landfall pulls back in InMyZen, and it's a good bit of damage. Up goes 1. But Slash goes way too soon on that. You gotta aim that one, buddy. Because unfortunately, InMyZen gets to leap away from this one. On the barest margins, Tyrian Weavers, they are not going quietly into this night.
Let's go back to the Phoenix here, Blur, because that is the main part of what we just watched. The rest of it was a lot of white noise, but full stop, nnog does not execute that correctly. It was a mechanical misplay from nnog that got the Tyrian Weavers to be the ones walking into the FG pit. If nnog uses beads or Aegis there, they kill Layers for free, and this is a completely different fight.
Well, this might be a bit of a fight that they will try and take. Nnog comes in. It's a full 5v5. Slash can't get in at this point in time. Pelting away with the Desert's Fury. Promise is low. But round the back, Layers goes in, gets a huge double dunk. Tubahh taken down in 1. And it may be a 1-for-1 trade away. But even so, it doesn't matter. Promise finds instead being taken down by Slash. Layers answered back as well. It is a 2-for-1 trade. Kaolin Wardens, when they group up as 5, they can start looking for this better engagement. So now it's just picking the members apart. Slash finds themselves in a bit of trouble, 2v1. The health bar is fine. Trypno, though, holding their own as well. Kaolin Wardens, I feel like their target focus is there, but then they just get a little bit too giddy in the tail end of their fights.
They did learn from their past mistakes, though. Trypno, well, hang on a second. Zen gets caught here, or excuse me, Nog gets caught by the ult from Zen. Has to expend the beads because he couldn't get in the wall in time. The Wardens definitely learned, because Leon jumps on top of Trypno and grabs him with the solar hook, and then Trypno just turns around and says, all right, somebody come hit me. And this time around, the Wardens did not just run at him like lambs to the cosmic slaughter. They instead back up and respect the fact that, you know, there's no overwhelming crowd control to prevent Trypno from getting the kill back. Slash gets jumped in on here. Remakami, so much damage.
So much damage, so far forward. The rest of the team wasn't even there. Come on, you can't play 40 minutes of Smite on a knife's edge and throw it away like that. Good catch from the Wardens to punish this. Now they'll find themselves with a 20% Fire Giant, and it's gone. Now they'll look for the continued chase away. Riptide in. Nog leads the charge on through. The good wall pulls them back. Leia's forced into the ultimate, and they will just look to satellite disengage. If he's going to go for it, it'd be a hell of a Hail Mary, but instead clears out the way. You say coward, I say...
Yeah, it's a coward. Come on, man. Throw the game. Make the flashy play.
I mean, I'll go back to what I said before. It's only a misplay if you're punished. I think the Kaolin Wardens would be good enough to punish that kind of play.
We'll see if they can punish them here on this siege defense. Tyrian Weaver, excuse me, Kaolin Wardens already grouped up here on the right-hand side. They got about 15 more seconds without Remakami, but it's going to be a little bit of time before the wave gets here. Nog teleports his way into mid lane alongside ELLEON. Takes a large sum of damage and has to get shelled for the disengage, though, so the Wardens, not in the best spot to siege, will have to back up. And the Weavers, once again, make an incredible individual play to just stop in the tracks what the Kaolin Wardens are doing. And Blair, I've been watching Nog and the rest of the boys for a couple of months now. I've played some in-houses with them. They're great guys. I love Nog, but he's making a lot of individual mistakes that are significantly slowing down the pace of the Kaolin Wardens game. If he is executing perfectly, if he's playing optimally throughout this game so far, game's over. Or at least it's damn near, because the Tyrian Weavers have been in a couple of near undefendable positions, but in particular that mess up on the left-hand Phoenix, and then right there taking a huge chunk of damage right before a big siege. These are the kinds of mistakes you can't make in front of such a veteran team like the Tyrian Weavers. They're absolutely going to punish you for those kinds of mistakes, and at least so far it hasn't cost them the game, but I'd really love to see Nog clean it up and play to the level that I know that he's capable of, because I know that he's probably kicking himself for the performance he's had here so far.
You say that, but look at the damage numbers coming through. Both mages from Tyrian Weavers, they've just got that extra range and poke potential, and that's what's been causing so many problems for them. If Leia's gets a wall stun, there's gonna be some big follow-up from Trypno, and at this late stage of the game, Wicked Witchfire's hitting you for like 600-700, if not more. Potential follow-up is InMyZen, forced into the ultimate after landfall. It's a bit of a split fight here coming through from the Kaolin Wardens. They grab the mid-Phoenix that was already weakened, as Tubahh eats about 40% of his health bar, like I said. Trypno does silly amounts of damage at this late stage of the game. So Kaolin Wardens have to play on this knife's edge. Nog now looking for a split push over on the right-hand side. Even so, Leia's, like you said, he ults on through. They take out Nog. Slash picks his up instead. Remakami up, downed by Slash, but Aegis is away the damage. Now looking to try and turn it around further, as left Phoenix also crumbles for the Tyrian Weavers. Kaolin Wardens are meticulously trying to pick apart the members. They're going for a disengage, but Tyrian Weavers will not let them. Trypno dashes forward, looking for the answer here, but Tubahh now just needs to start trying to turn out fire, but it will not work. Instead, it's Delnyyy and ELLEON being mowed down by 3. Slashes on the way, but it might be too little too late.
Trypno leading the charge, actually gets pulled out of the jump. That could be bad for him.
Done, in place, getting low, landfall up again, picks up 2, and the silence is there! InMyZen taken for the double kill, Slash answers it back. Remakami now answered again. They saw this play over on the right. Let's see if it works out worse for them on the left. Death side through,
Nice.
and 649 damage to the back of the head. A triple kill for the Hand of Death.
And the Wardens finally make it happen. This should be, Blurred, the end of the game, bar any theatrics here from Promise. Find it hard to believe that he's got it in him.
I do as well. As we're looking in, the runic bombs come down. The damage output from the mage in the solo lane is there. And with Nog even coming on through as well, they'll take down layers to make absolutely certain the game ends. 44:08 on the clock, but game one is the Kaolin Wardens.
It was a long one, and it definitely, I feel personally, could have been shorter, but the Wardens seemed to be at least in the driver's seat the whole time. Whether or not they were completely in control, I mean, the Weavers for sure had a hand on the wheel, maybe two of them for most of that game, but the Wardens finally do get the job done, and, you know, slaaaaaasH was, we said on the desk, or at least I think it was Bobby that did, very hot or cold player, very hot or cold god. I think he was pretty darn hot in this one.
Yeah, I mean, looking at the way it was played, it was constantly causing problems in the backline, constantly re-engaging in fights for them, able to be that semi-global presence to back up Nog. And there's a lot that the Tyrian Weavers are going to have to try and pick apart here in game two, so we'll give them a break to see what they can find out.
Hopping on the plane, hit a different country with each other, change your last name. Tell me, is you with it? Cause I'm with it. Why don't you feel the same? Down, 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 down. Knew you was different from the start, love. How you learn? They never taught love. You keep it peaceful and equal. I'm used to wars, love, hard love. I'm used to trauma, used to drama. Got a list of bad exes, plus I got a baby mama. Still you keep it solid, put that on my mama and them. Way you build me up, you probably add an extra accommodation, destination, running to a flight. We ain't never coming back, I hope you didn't pack light. We should run away to about a day. Pack a bag, cop a couple tickets, hopping on the plane. Hit a different country with each other, change your last name. Tell me, is you with it? Cause I'm with it. Why don't you feel the same? Down, 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 down. Is it selfish that I want you all on me? Loving all on me, touching all on me, f***ing all on me? Girl, be honest, 30,000 feet and we can leave the world behind us. Cause we keep it raw, I'ma hit it with no I'ma hit you with my soul, I'ma hit you with these goals. You should probably leave your phone, ain't no service where we go. But you can't be iffy, baby, tell me where you at. You can choose the destination, put your finger on the map. We should run away to about a day. Pack a bag, cop a couple tickets, hopping on the plane. Hit a different country with each other, change your last name. Tell me, is you with it? Cause I'm with it. Why don't you feel the same? Down, 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 down. just love, I want everything. Touch my soul, touch my heart, don't judge my mental. They told me that life is simple, been real since Papa Pimple. I started out in the rental, Sonata, the presidential. Speak once and listen twice, they told me that less is simple. I'm observing in the room, I be flying all on the wall. Open mouth conversations, I leave you all in some all. Cutting through the noise, I'm hoping I leave a scar. If you don't know where you been, how you knowing where you are?
Let's cruise in the night, I'm grooving. Thought you said you was my type, I'm moving too slow. Text back like shit, I'm cool with it. I can match energies, babe, I'm moving your soul. Threw off the time, check my notifications. It wasn't love we was prepping for, but was something adjacent. I can't be wasting lines, I'm in for something to say.
That's right. You should go to youtube.com/SmitePro to get a peek into a whole ton of content that you might be missing otherwise. I mean, first off, we have recaps that go up there. Like if you missed Europe, that's going to be there. But also lately, things that have been going up are team talk about the SPL teams going on the road to Worlds. From a lot of the players, we got to sit down and ask them what their thoughts were. Right now, the Hounds video is up there, the Gladiators video is up there, but most recently on Wednesday, the Dragons Road to Worlds discussion video and kind of deep dive into that team is available. So you should go to youtube.com/SmitePro. Subscribe to the channel, check out those videos, and of course make sure that you're tuning in because there's a ton more. I mean, if only 3 are out, guess what? That means we've got at least 5 more for the SPL teams that are going to be shaking through. So make sure that you're going to be there. And then if you happen to miss some games and you see one of those recaps and want to watch something else, you can go over to SMITE VOD and check those out. But it's Gore, it's Inbound, and we are watching a very fun game. Goes the distance, a lot longer than maybe you would have imagined. And the Wardens, it was really weird. For a while, they had a really high kill lead, but like just a slight gold lead. And then the kill lead lessened, but their gold lead grew.
Yeah, it was a strange game to kind of watch. It seemed like when one team kind of got like a nice little advantage, it kind of almost instantly disapparated, and the other team kind of made a play and kind of brought them back. And then it would flip to the other side, where the other side would have an advantage. Like, we had Fire Giant stolen by Maui 3. We had, I mean, just looking at Slash's Slash line, Slash went 16-3 that game. That is good. That is, if anybody ever goes 16-3 against you, that is a ban for the next game. That is not something that player can have again. And it's not like this is the first time we've seen the Slash Thana. He has played it a lot. It is time to get rid of that, make him play something else, make him show you that he can play something else. But on top of that, I think most of the plays that we saw from the Weavers were basically off of Layers. A lot of the reason that they were kind of staying in this game was Layers kind of making a hero play and getting out either alive or getting like a 1-for-1 trade that was very beneficial for the team. And I think the Weavers need to find somebody outside of Layers to be able to help them and put them into a better position to win.
And really, I mean, I have to stand by what you said. First off, I always love getting to see Thanatos, but I would argue a third of the time, maybe even more, maybe like what's the percent? Like 80% of the time that we see Thanatos, he does one of two things. So I guess it would be split 40-40, which is he shows up and he just kind of exists. You know, maybe he's got like 5 assists, 5 kills, like he just kind of is there. The other 40% of that time, he's terrible, and then 20% of the time we get this, where you get to see like what a Thanatos, like truly realized Thanatos comes out. I'm talking like full Archon form, level 20. Like that's what we got to see here.
And it's not like he was last hitting, because sometimes like that's what assassins do. They can chase down. He did 35,000 damage, more damage than everybody else on his team. He's got a mage, he's got 2 hunters. Obviously, we're not talking about the Maui when we talk about damage, but that is an incredible game there by Slash. And I think the Weavers are making a ginormous mistake if they do not ban that away in this next game.
And what makes things interesting is moving into that, because if you do have to ban it, right? Because first off, if you're first picking Thanatos to take it away from somebody else, you've got some issues going on. So you presumably either have to ban it or you have to draft in a way that like controls it better, which again that controls like what you're doing as opposed to just hitting it with the ban. But if you hit him with the ban, all of a sudden there's another thing picked up, and based on, again, some of the names and the fact that there's a spider right there, Weavers presumably going to be the first pick going into this. So they have that control, but that also means that if they ban a Thanatos, you get one. And you got to hope that the two you let over aren't something that the Wardens are going to just be able to eat up and then tear you apart with.
Yeah, I think it's interesting when a losing team goes to the first pick side, because they kind of decide P's and B's on how they go. That's your value from getting first pick. You get to pick the bans, and you also get the first pick. The opposite side gets to ban away the OP gods, and then they also get the next 2 picks. So already, starting with that Cuckoo ban, no surprise. Athena, expect a lot of just high prio characters. I'm still hoping for the Thana. Chernobog ban here, slaaaaaasH ban, and no Thana.
No Thana. So either slaaaaaasH goes back to it and has the time of his life, or the Weavers think they can handle it a little bit better. Athena, slaaaaaasH, and the Aphrodite get banned out. So a Poseidon first pick, not uncommon. In fact, I feel like we saw the Dragons a few weeks ago doing this, and it's something that like nnego was able to play in the solo lane and look really good on. But we had mentioned it earlier, Wardens get 2 of the top picks, or I guess just 2 picks they want. Maui has not been like a go-to support for a long time, but the Wardens, look, when you steal an FG with your 3 as a Maui, then yeah, you're gonna go back to him.
Yeah, and I think Maui's seen a lot more play in this NA SEC tournament than it has in EU SEC or in the SPL. He seems to be pretty highly prioed, and just like that, Wardens get the Thana with their 3rd pick, so they don't even need to put like high prio towards it.
Wow, he's got a 100% win rate right now.
How many?
3 games.
3 games played. I'm pretty sure.
And one of them he went 17-3. That's crazy.
Yeah, and I'm pretty sure slaaaaaasH was every game.
I want to see what Thanatos' KDA is for this event. That's insane, actually.
With a couple other bans going the way, Kama, Rat, Vulcan, and Baba. Leaves open the Anhur again for the Wardens. Not really switching anything up. They actually have 4 of the exact same gods they had last game. The only thing they will have to switch up is they won't get that Bog, but they still have an opportunity to take that Raijin, put it mid. It is a flex potential at this point. And the Weavers, instead of going back to that Thor, instead of trying to like match that Thana again, goes for a little bit more of an engaged character, picks that Erlang. And so now you're going to need somebody outside of Layers to be that kind of carry tool, because Layers is on this Erlang.
Yeah, and that can be precarious, as we saw actually earlier today, right? Like if you go for an Erlang and you get into the back, sometimes that doesn't mean too much for your team. So you need the backup from that Morgan, from that Poseidon, from that Hachi. It does also mean that you're, we've kind of talked about this a lot, but like your team maybe is either a little too damage oriented depending on your build, or too tanky depending on your build, along with the Poseidon. So it creates an interesting dynamic for them. Also, I saw only 4.5. That 17-3 game genuinely just saved a lot of what the Thanatos skinny was. Brought him up pretty high, which I guess that's a 5.0 game, so, or a little over a 5.0 game. So you're feeling probably pretty good about that. And if you're slaaaaaasH going back to it, I think the Wardens are going to look good. How do you like the Weavers and their chances to hold on here?
I think their comp this game makes a little bit more sense. I think their backline is a little bit stronger, and it's going to be less on Layers and more on the backline. So really up to their mid ADC and support, can they actually play that backline very well? I think they can with how they've drafted, though. Well,
we'll have to find out here as we go to game number 2. And of course, to do that, we'll go down to our casters.
Thank you very much, Gore and Inbound. Kaizo, Gore is inbound in this matchup here. 4 of the 5 picks picked back on up here for the Kaolin Wardens, slaaaaaasH, like was mentioned, back to this Thanatos. Now, we do see a bit more of a matchup change with the Tyrian Weavers. Do you think it's going to be enough, given what we saw last game?
I'm still thinking about Gore will be inbound. That kind of banged. I think that you kind of glossed over that a little too quickly. Is that the first time you used that? Because that's awesome.
Yeah, that's the first time I think I've had Gore inbound on the comp. I spent the entire Picks and Bans workshop in that.
I believe
it landed.
I'm sorry. What did you ask me? Did you ask me a question?
Yeah, I said, will the change-ups from Tyrian Weavers be enough to match this kind of comp that we've seen?
I don't know. At least right now, Trypno's apparently in the jungle, and Layers has taken his talents to the mid lane, so that's going to be a bit of an adaptation there. But I do think that it is going to be a vastly different style that we're going to see from the Tyrian Weavers, especially with Remakami on this Poseidon and Delnyyy swapping over to the Nike. I think the solo lane matchup and the changes there modify a lot of the landscape of this game and make it seem like a vastly different game to me. Layers also on this Erlang Shen, which we've seen main Jisoo has played almost exclusively so far in this tournament, if I'm not mistaken. And it's this Atalanta's bow into the Shogun's Kusari kind of build from him every time, and it looks like Lair's going to be going for much the same. ELLEON is so aggressive with no HP. A good impale from Tubahh. Make sure he stays topped up. But layers on the Erlang Shen is really the core alongside Remakami. That taunt into Kraken, taunt into Morgan Le Fay CC that does not diminishing return. That's going to be very difficult for the Wardens to deal with. And you get another shot at not putting slaaaaaasH off to a good lead, because remember, he got pretty substantially far ahead, not initially in the game. It wasn't off the first engagement, which actually a little bit botched, but very close behind that, he managed to get a pretty substantial lead under himself. You gotta cut the momentum of slaaaaaasH. Thanatos is a momentum-based character. slaaaaaasH is a momentum-based player. You need to slow things down. You need to make him feel uncomfortable. And I think the Tyrian Weavers, with the ample amounts of crowd control they have in the mid 3v3, can do a pretty good job of that.
They could, though we did see slaaaaaasH mainly got that little bit of that lead to perch off from, was over towards this solo side. And that's what they've been putting a little bit of focus there.
There we go.
Potential invade, but recognized out. Layers, though, get a great pin and a great fear to follow it up with 3 members around. Layers put slaaaaaasH into the ground.
And that does open up for a blue buff invade if Layers... Okay, he did just realize that the blue buff is spawning, so that should take that one away from Delnyyy. I don't suspect that Delnyyy will be able to defend this one. And that's exactly what you needed if you're the Tyrian Weavers. You don't want this Thanatos to get off to a good lead, and that is the optimal way to start. Oh, Delnyyy does secure the buff, so unfortunate for the Weavers, but you do still put slaaaaaasH behind pretty early on and get a kill onto Layers who can drive the bus, to use the same metaphor I used in set number 1 with Frog, for the Tyrian Weavers. Nog actually jumping in here.
Gets the beads. Will they go for the taunt back in? They will do so. Puts him down to about 30% health, just over 300 HP if I had to take a stab at it. Unfortunately, slaaaaaasH not level 5, nor around to be able to blink one-shot that remaining HP. So the Tyrian Weavers, but again, Trypno now with no beads. Also, can we just point out, it's Morgan Le Fay in mid. I was kind of just sitting here thinking, oh yeah, you put the Poseidon mid, it deals with Nog, and you get that matchup. No, it's Morgan mid.
Have you been watching the SMITE this weekend, Blur? Because that's like the thing, is you put the Morgan Le Fay in mid and the Poseidon in solo. And a lot of that comes from, I think I talked about this previously, Poseidon has a great matchup into the Raijin, and because you put the Poseidon in solo lane, it prevents the Raijin from going solo, so Delnyyy isn't allowed to reprise that one over there and has to go to a different pick. But Morgan Le Fay is just a little bit more flexible and uses the full power build a little bit better than a Poseidon does right now. Just the kit from Poseidon isn't good on its own.
Blink caught ELLEON. The solar swing is just dangling there. And unfortunately on landing, Layers is following up. River's Rebuke was there as well. slaaaaaasH is over the wall. But instead, they will just go ahead and hit the B button and say, yeah, sorry about that one, ELLEON, but can't really stop it as Tyrian Weavers get themselves 2 picks up, and there's been no response backs from the Weavers, from the Wardens even.
Yep, they have been pretty quiet so far, and this time around, I do think they have a much earlier game composition. Raijin is just generally good and will always be good in the late game, but everybody else pretty much wants to get online in the mid game to the early game. I don't think you have that same handoff kind of composition where it's like, all right, slaaaaaasH, you got to get us to X mark and then X thing will be good for us and we'll be totally fine. Nog and Tubahh are on premier backliners, don't get me wrong, but on premier mid to early game backliners, I would argue. I think that Anhur's strengths come around the 10-15 minute mark and then a little bit of fall off, not a whole lot, just because his kit is insane, but definitely not as good as something like this Hachiman.
Maybe not. And like you said, this late as this goes, could be a little bit more awkward for the Wardens. I'll have to see whether or not their teamfight potential is any good. One thing I do want to mention, because I never got the chance to do so last game, I'm very upset at Nog. Please, if you go into any more scrims with them, please yell at them not to put their starter in the second item. It's the starter. It starts your build. All right? I wish it was punishable. I wish it was a punishable offense, because it is very offensive.
Do they not get fined for that? I feel like they should get fined for that.
We'll have a word with Hindu about that, see what we can do for that, as ELLEON steals away the buff. He's been on a tear of stealing away buffs recently, but Nog goes over the wall, looks for Trypno, And the ult is forced, and Slash can blink on through to that one and answer that back. Now Nog is just trying to fear everyone else away. 9-turn's blessing is there, but he dashes into the tower, and InMyZen got last hit in on them. Slash gets to get away with the hovering death. Shame he couldn't take Nog with him, but instead, it's actually Remakami getting run down in solo side. Kaolin Wardens have just decided to pop off everywhere all at once.
Remakami is still very low, but has great sustain between the Pythagorean's piece and that
so
Vamp Shroud, so
disgusting.
should actually not even be forced to back unless somebody wants to rotate over here. And it feels wrong that Nog just gets to jump into the green buff pit and kill Trypno. I understand he died for it, Blur. That's not what I'm getting at. Just the fact that you are not safe in your own green buff pit seems fundamentally wrong to me. And it's fortunate for the Weavers that the rotation did come in from the dual lane. Zen hopped up on the horse, even used the beads to make sure that Nog didn't buy enough time to make it over the wall and get to live through that play. So a lot invested to make sure that Nog gets punished for his actions, but they do still bring him down, which is pretty important for them, considering the fact that the Raijin in last game, granted different player, was pretty impactful. You don't want to make sure that it gets off to much the same start here. It's a lot more blood early on in this one than I remember from the previous.
Hey, I called it when we went in from the transition over from desk. Goal will be inbound. And that's what's happening here. Trypno again caught in such an awkward spot. Kaolin Wardens have been constantly forcing away the beads, the ult, whatever it is that Trypno has for safety, it is being forced on cooldown.
Might have been their halftime adaptation between games, was realizing that a lot of the issues they had were caused by Trypno. ELLEON has some issues caused for him by Layers, who is still going for it.
Pin, good pin, goes for the landfall, but River's Rebuke means that this will be the end for ELLEON. Eventually taken down. Almost thought he was going to get away. Nog's damage over the wall ignored. And like you said, Gold Fury, members from Tyrian Weavers are coalescing over this way. And Kaolin Wardens can't step up to answer this. Tubahh is limping back away from this engagement. Tyrian Weavers get themselves a free Gold Fury. They're now up about 15 to 1700 gold.
I don't know if they know each other, but I bet ELLEON and iSilenced would be, like, thick as thieves. I bet they'd be the best of friends, because they both have this playstyle of, I'm gonna go on a mobile Guardian that doesn't get punished easily, and then I'm just gonna be as annoying as possible to anybody in front of me as frequently as I can. And ELLEON does actually get punished there for what feels like the first time this set, because he's, like you said earlier, been stealing a lot of stuff. Like, I'm talking shield buffs, mid-camps, oracles, fire giants at times. He finally does take a spill for it, but it's been his playstyle the entire set so far, and I don't expect that that's going to be changing anytime soon, especially with the way that the pace of this one's going. ELLEON back over here in the dual lane, and probably going to secure another shield buff.
Man, look at this from Layers, able to actually take the fight to Slash on this warrior in the jungle. The Atalanta's bow and the Shogun's has worked out well, and it's like you've mentioned before, it's Jisoo's been playing this kind of exact pick and this exact kind of a build, but even so, it has been able to fight very aggressively early, which is kind of what the Tyrian Weavers needed, I feel. Like, they never were able to take early fights, as Trypno gets a little bit aggressive here. 2v1 against Nog and ELLEON. Ult is forced again, but at least it's traded out this time.
I think it was last set with Judas and Mifflin that they were talking about how the mid laners from NA just like to get dirty for no reason, and that was an ult trade just for the sake of it. Layers takes a huge chunk of damage here.
9-turn's blessing, now just needs to buy the time for it. The pin is there, and out comes a Kraken, but Promise is already taken down Slash. Nog finds Layers in response, but look at ELLEON's health again! Either he came back from Bracing 8 so much, or he never got to back. This fight has just been keeping on, going on. Nog takes down Remakami. His health bars are so low across the board here for the Weavers and the Wardens, both really, like you said, these mid laners like to get dirty and stuck in the mud to pad their damage stats, for lack of better wording on it, but it's starting to become a problem because these can now become engagements. People are rotating to them.
Yep. Saw both solo laners involved in that one, and every time ELLEON has been jumping in, it seems like there's just a River's Rebuke waiting just around the corner every single time. Promise has been pretty on the mark with those, and we had some question marks for the validity of picking it first overall, which I personally think a bit of a stretch. I do think Yemoja is, if played optimally, the best non-Athena Guardian. But I do think that there are other stuff that you could be picking first overall. Promise, though, at least so far in this one, has been making a pretty convincing argument for it being that worthwhile of a pick. He looks very comfortable on this one. Getting a lot of good work, not only in this one, but even in the previous game, despite the fact that they lost it. A lot of shining moments from the Yemoja in that one as well. It's been excellent at locking down ELLEON, creating these opportunities for the back end of a fight after the Wardens engage, sort of a re-engage situation. Once again, going to be contending with the demon that is ELLEON. But here's the mid laners again, man. These NA mid laners, you cannot put a leash on them.
At this point, this is just the solo lane now in the mid lane. Nog going deep to go ahead and disengage from this one. But
wild.
Yeah, this is what I want from mages. I want these two mages to be fighting each other and doing more damage than sustaining through. But InMyZen forced into the Aegis to try and deter any follow-up damage from ELLEON and Tubahh over this side of the map. And ELLEON, again, spending a fair bit of time over to this dual lane side. Haven't seen quite so much coming through from Promise, kind of flittering between mid as well. But we mentioned last game, like, Kaolin Wardens were getting off to a scrappy start in a fight, but Tyrian Weavers were like, it's fine, we'll come to this late game. Doesn't end up working out for them. Is the reverse true? Kaolin Wardens are looking at this going, we're kind of behind right now. Should we be concerned?
It's hard. It really is, because usually it's pretty simple which composition is better late game. I think this is a pretty difficult situation to determine. I do think that Tubahh gets a little bit outscaled, but it's a thin margin. And everybody else, I mean, is pretty close. I think Layers has just better late game viability as a utility character than something like Thanatos, that typically attributed to having an execute late game and then a good early game, but not much else. I think that if I had to put my money on one or the other, it's probably the Weavers draft that scales better, but they also only have one real frontliner because Remakami's on this Poseidon this time. Delnyy's going to create a lot of space alongside ELLEON, facilitate opportunities for Nog to jump in as he has been so far this game. It's going to be tough. I think that the Weavers scale better, but it really is almost a coin toss.
Well, Promise steps on up. ELLEON puts a lot of damage into them. The meditation is there, but they just about get out of the execute threshold, and Trypno now puts out so much damage. Slash can't keep it going. InMyZen on the horse takes them down with the Undead Marchery and gets themselves a double kill onto Nog. A huge turnaround fight there. Tyrian Weavers members are rotating on through ELLEON with the landfall. Might just be now a gravestone marker at this point. Remakami takes down ELLEON. A 3-4-0 for the Weavers. And just like last time they win a fight, they go straight to the Fury.
So unfortunate there for Slash, because Yemoja heals just probably single-digit HP outside of the execute threshold there right as he's about to land on her. And that's not only, obviously, the Yemoja healing from the kit, but, as you mentioned, the meditation also getting him up above that threshold. Not sure. Nog must have put Divine Ruin on him, so even then, we're talking very thin margins, but somehow Promise managed to make it up above that threshold. If Layers gets the heal off that, gets the reset on the Death Scythe as well, that's probably a different fight, and he doesn't at least die instantaneously to Zen just riding the horse around the corner and waiting for him to peek his head around. But unfortunately for the Kaolin Wardens, they lost another objective off that one.
They have, and they'll go ahead and secure the Pyromancer for themselves. ELLEON will go ahead and grab that one in. It's a small dent back down to the 2,000 gold lead. But map presence-wise, mid-tier 1 tower, Kaolin Wardens were able to grab that one, thanks to Nog being as aggressive as they were into Trypno.
Yep.
Who finds themselves 0-2-6 versus 3-2-1. I feel like this is kind of, unlike last game where it was Slash being able to just facilitate executions and set up so much damage and be a major threat. It's now on Nog, right? And Nog is the big boy for the Kaolin Wardens.
Big man on campus, actually, for the Tyrian Weavers would seem to be InMyZen, who 3-0-2. I feel like we haven't called his name a whole lot so far this set, but he was the first one to tick over to level 16, going for that fail not build into the crit that we see a little bit more of recently. You got a couple of different options for these ADC builds. I think that Mifflin called it the quintessential tank shredding build is what Tubahh's got over there, the Devos Executioner into the Dominance and the Kinsai, which is likely to be what Tubahh goes next, versus InMyZen, who usually a crit build, you think you're hitting squishier targets. Typically a mage solo is the reason that crit is so good right now, because you're not hitting something with a crazy amount of protections, and those crits actually do ring out a little bit harder. He is up against Delnyyy on the Nike, so no mage over there in the solo lane, but goes for the crit anyway. He gets really good value out of Fail Not, can proc that pretty reliably, a good overall item for him to be purchasing. And despite the fact that doesn't go for the pure penetration build, does actually end up pretty much coincidentally, I guess, getting a decent amount of penetration in the build, which should help him deal with Delnyyy and ELLEON a little bit easier.
Speaking of ELLEON, they've made the rotation on over to the solo side. Solo swings over the wall. But unfortunately, just trying to tank up this tower, Remakami's health bar is eventually shredded down. Delnyyy credited with the kill. A rough look for them. 4 members over this side of the map. And usually this is where it's like there's the punish. Tyrian Weavers go for the Fury. It's already down. So instead, they'll try and answer 1-for-1 on towers, as the beacon in mid lane gets pressured out as well. Kaolin Wardens are starting to try and answer back, and it again seems to be, can we punish Remakami?
I don't know, man. If I'm Remakami there, I feel like I just juke the 4 people in my tier 1 tower by myself, you know?
Yeah, you just be better.
Yeah, just don't get hit by the damage, or at least don't die to it if you are going to get hit. Feels like a misplay there. Promise pretty far forward here and out of position. Nog's going to go up into the ult and pull him in.
They do, and that's enough time for a blink, but unfortunately, or fortunately, depending on who you're talking about, Death Scythe misses. Nog cleans that one up. Now Layers in a 1v1 against Tubahh. Finds themselves awkward. ELLEON stops everyone going in. Hovering Death Scythe. Potential comes on through. Lands on in on Remakami, but there were more members around. Out as well with the Kraken. It's a big fight. Lots of spells go flying, but no one's gonna die in outside of Promise.
Layers does not want to be done with this engagement, though, or at least buying a little bit of space, because 5 seconds left on this Fury respawn. He'll invade these back camps and check out and see who else is still around. Remakami has no Kraken here, and there are a couple of members of the Kaolin Wardens nearby. Delnyyy going to be tasked with flushing a couple of members of the Tyrian Weavers out of the Gold Fury pit. Now seems to know that Layers is over here on the left-hand side. Doesn't look likely that they're going to end up punishing him for it, but do at least push the Tyrian Weavers out of the Gold Fury pit and prevent another objective from going in their favor. And you know, Blur, despite being 2 kills down and almost all of the objectives going the way of the Tyrian Weavers, the Wardens are keeping up very well in farm. I mean, they're doing an excellent job of spreading out the map and confirming as much neutral farm as possible. In particular, Nog, despite being on the team that is a little bit far behind, is about a level up. Same thing for Delnyyy can be said, who's a level up on Remakami. So they do have a couple of good strong points that they can use to fight around these objectives with. Nog is leading the charge once again around the Pyromancer, which seems to be the next point of contention.
It does, and this is a full 5v5 situation. Slashes around and can come in with the ultimate, but it's a blink on through with the Sentinel of Zeus to slow everyone down. Rivers of Butte cuts out the path as around the back. It's just Layers looking for an engagement. Kaolin Wardens get their fight that they want. They take down Promise again with the execute, and now Layers left high and dry, unable to get away from this one. So that's a Pyromancer and 2 good picks for the Kaolin Wardens. You said that they're keeping up in farm. It's parity in kills, and it's parity, in fact, slightly ahead for the Wardens in gold. With another Fury on the map, they're the ones who can start looking at it.
And nobody to play defense for the Tyrian Weavers. And I don't know, Blur, I feel like we saw some pretty similar stuff from Oblivion that we're seeing now from the Tyrian Weavers, where you have this Erlang Shen, and it's the exact same cookie-cutter build, and I'm not saying that as though it's a bad thing. It's an excellent and very, very cool build that we don't get to see a lot of these items purchased particularly often, at least not in this combination. But the Erlang Shen with a hybrid itemized build basically acting as another solo laner in the jungle, I feel like he just needs more help on the dive than something like a Poseidon can reliably give him. Because in that engagement in particular, Remakami was nowhere near where Layers was. I mean, Layers had a bunch of people by himself, and that's not how a Poseidon works.
It isn't, but look at this. Layers throws out the ultimate, and there's so much invested into Delnyyy, who gets to just Sentinel of Zeus, and they're still on about 20%
Okay.
health. Pushed very low, but not low enough. Promise again, can't say the same. Slash takes them down. It's 3-3 read Slash's scoreline now. And looking across at this is just like you said, the problem. Layers needs more help. He isn't tanky enough to go in fully frontline. He doesn't do enough damage to threaten anyone when he goes down on himself. Now the fight, Kaolin Wardens jump over the wall and absolutely eviscerate multiple members. Trypno and InMyZen taken down. Remakami being pincered on through here. They will eventually make it back to safety, but it isn't exactly that safe. Tubahh ends up with a double kill. Leia's the only one left alive. They started that engagement, but, well, they don't get to finish it.
And Remakami still hasn't learned how to juke, unfortunately, so it does take another spill there, 1v4 in the tier 2 tower. And the Wardens kind of seemed to catch the Tyrian Weavers off guard there. It didn't look like, based on the positioning, the Weavers thought that they would just all in, jump over the wall. Delnyyy didn't have the ult available, nnog also missing that cooldown. And despite that fact, they very confidently jumped over the wall on top of both of the backliners who were grouped up with no support to play peel, no true solo laner to play defense in Remakami, who was A Poseidon, and B, basically dead at that point. I mean, it was only a matter of time before he was going to go down as a result of that engagement. And once again, I just have my question marks for the coordination between Layers and Remakami, because you can definitely see the idea. It is a completely sound concept of Layers goes in, he's tanky so he doesn't die instantaneously, you get a huge taunt onto the back line, 9 turns blessing, a very wide cone, you can get it on a couple of different people reliably, you drop double mage follow-up damage on top of that, and then Promise and InMyZen are either helping dive or helping peel for each other in the backline, creating space, using River's Rebuke to deny zone control, all of that good stuff. But in practice, Remakami doesn't seem to be allowed to get to the positions that Layers is in. More often than not, we see Layers either as a solo agent or not diving the backline and trying to play front to back. And that just hasn't been working super well for the Tyrian Weavers so far. So they either need to execute the dive a little bit better or make some kind of fundamental adaptation to how they're playing these fights, because Layers and Remakami haven't been getting the value out of these two picks that you'd really want them to.
I like the choice of words there as well, execution, because I wanted to mention Promise. It's always been Promise. Promise is the one who is getting executed every single time from Slash here. And I feel like that's just causing so many problems for them. I mentioned last game this idea that the execute means you're playing with a 40% shorter health bar. Promise is supposed to be the one who keeps everyone's health going up. So if they're the first one out of the fight every time, everyone else suddenly has to actually fear that. Sure, the execute goes down, but even so, Slash still does more than enough damage. Everyone on Kaolin Wardens does enough damage. And that's the big turning point difference, I think. The damage that the Kaolin Wardens is doing is sticking. Tyrian Weavers, not so much.
Titans marching the way down the mid lane, already one contended with, and Layers gets caught out on the left-hand side. Taiko drums and the Thanatos ult will bring him down before he even gets the chance to play Blur. Titan about to walk into that middle tower, but looks like the Kaolin Wardens want the burden left.
And look at this, Delnyyy just pushing everyone out and away from this Bud. River's Rebuke is there, but it buys the barest amount of time for the rest of them. Delnyyy might fall in trade here. Instead, the Phoenix goes down in just enough time, and Delnyyy is tanky enough to survive that.
Yep.
There's one warrior on the map we can say that about at least.
Yeah, there's your argument for why you play a warrior instead of a mage right now. Mages are very good at the snowball style fights, playing the poke war. They have great sustain, they're very difficult to deal with in the laning phase. But late game, having a warrior to just stand in front of 3 people and say, you can't get past me, I won't let you, is still very good in the game of Smite. Granted, mages are meta for a reason. They do a lot of things very well. In this particular instance, however, Delnyyy would not have been able to do that on a mage. That is the exact reason that you pick something like a Nike to just stand in front of a bunch of people and buy a lot of space, buy a lot of time. And it bought enough space and time, not to go through it, but to at least get the left-hand Phoenix for the Kaolin Wardens. You like what I did there? I saw you smile a little bit when I said that.
It was the Yanis. It was the Yanis. I was this close to saying, but there's no Yanis in this game. What there is, Kaolin Wardens are using very, very effectively, and one thing I do want to mention as well, don't forget Nike passive exists. That is a thing. There's little wreaths on the head. The fact that they are faster, have more damage, it's essentially another beacon buff, which they've been controlling really well. So they are faster than you, stronger than you, and when they've got Fire Giant, they out-heal you as well. It's such a strong... Okay, well, I'm not really sure how that one works, but you can explain that one to me off camera on that side of things. But
that's
Tyrian
the expression,
Weavers
right? You're harder, better, faster, stronger. I thought that was.
Oh, that's what it's work it harder, make it better, do it faster, makes it stronger.
There you go.
But
what did you think I meant?
I that's why I wanted to know. But right now, I think Tyrian Weavers know exactly where the Kaolin Wardens are. It's back around this Fire Giant. Is this a do or die situation? Do they have to defend on this, or can they let this one go and maybe go on sieges?
Their siege defense is very, very good. So I think that it's pretty normal that they're backing up and surrendering a lot of pit control, especially considering the fact that Layers, already accounted for in the left lane. Morgan Le Fay is one of the, if not the premier mages for siege defense. She clears very well from a range. She has very good long-range CC and a lot of impromptu peel if need be. If somebody jumps on her unexpectedly, she can cast Dragonflight at her feet and get on out of there as quickly as possible. So they do at least have some pretty good tools for siege defense if they want to elect to back up. Looks like, at least for the time being, they're thinking about sticking around in the pit. You definitely don't give it up for free. I think that should go without saying. You, in a situation like this, well, actually, they're 11k down, Blur. I did not know that they were this far behind.
Yeah.
It doesn't feel like 11,000 gold. It feels like a good 3, 4, 5,000 gold lead. But even just the momentum of the map state itself, I think that you do still at least walk up into the pit and slow it down. You don't want to all into this fight, but you don't want to just give it up for free either. Take some health bars with you, at least try to maybe trade 1 or 2. If you can strip FG off of one member or steal it away, that's optimal, obviously, but we'll see what they're capable of doing, as it's already half HP.
Getting lower, Slash still lurking their way onto the map. But it's the fight that the Kaolin Wardens wants instead. ELLEON spends a lot of time on the solar swing, almost just for zone control. They'll find Layers on their own. It'll need a little bit of poke in response. But Kaolin Wardens, again, they're not interested in this Fire Giant. They want the full fight, because if they get a good fight here, it's not Fire Giant they go for. It is the Titan here. It's ELLEON again leading the charge in.
Slash.
As Hovering Death comes up. They're not finding a home yet. It's Promise who's executed. Can't be involved in this. Now Layers gets a big taunt, but there's no follow-up damage at all. Remakami goes out with the frenzy. InMyZen takes down nnog. It's a good start to a fight, but round the back, Tubahh's found Trypno.
And now Tubahh jumping in over the wall. Remakami already half HP, has 4 members chasing behind him. Slash with the Blinken will land a third kill there.
That could very well be game. Layers needs to back, and it's going to be another miracle defense if they can. Slash, though, doesn't even care about the Phoenix. He says, guys, let's just go for the end here. Layers is the only one alive. Layers doesn't have the CC or the peel or the potential to stop everyone. They'll get controlled on out. The Titan's down to half HP, and the 6th seed is going to do just like the 5th. They're going to go ahead and make themselves a statement game here.
And shocking, frankly, that they don't ban the Thanatos away from Slash. It was I hesitate to call it a colder game from Slash, because the first one was just astronomical. I mean, you're not going to get that kind of performance every game. But being able to just constantly put pressure on Promise, which seemed to be their plan from the get-go, was just pull Promise in with Maui, execute him once he gets low. That worked pretty much from minute 1 to the end of the game. That was the exact reason that last fight plays out so well. The dive was overwhelming, they completely removed the support, and there just wasn't the coordination from the Weavers.
Indeed, and I know I speak for both of us here. We could gush about this forever on just how good it was, but we got 2 people over on the desk to go ahead and do that for us. So, Gore, it's all yours.
That's right. The Wardens here are able to eke it out. And I was certain, to the point where I even told you as we left Vixen Bands, I was like, yeah, this feels like it should go 3. And I guess surprise to me, right, to see the Wardens, the way they came together in this game. Admittedly, Slash, but also the rest of them in Game 1, but mainly Slash in Game 1. This time, kind of a full team effort to really get the job done.
Yeah, man, and it started with a nice little Tyrian Weavers lead. They were starting to play the game pretty well in that early portion. And then it was almost like a a switch just flipped, and then it became just all Wardens just winning most of these fights. And this time it wasn't even Slash on this Thanatos that was really the driving force. A lot of it comes down to, I mean, Nog on this Raijin did a lot. The Nike, this is the second Nike we've now seen that I was rather impressed with. The zoning potential, the damage, and then on top of that, again, Maui comes out. It's not something that's one of those top tier gods, but ELLEON has a fantastic game on that. So a bunch of these things just compiled on top of each other, and this Wardens team, they didn't even rely on Slash this game to be that hard carrier like they did in game 1, and I think that allows for them to have multiple different ways to kind of win the game.
And what I really think is, and this is something that you'll see sometimes, especially in some of these games, and SPL as well, but like the Warden's farm game, you can tell was excellent because right there, you know, starting that fight, it's like 2 kills separating them, 3 kills, 4 kills by the end of it, but there was 4,000 gold separating them, right? Even here, you know, 8 to 14, it's skewed even heavier. But then you notice it's an 11,000 gold lead. And that's really, I think, what was worth looking at is like, while last time specifically Slash had an absolutely insane game, this time not only do you get to see a lot more, like you had mentioned, from Tubahh, from Nog, everybody else on the board, but realistically you also got to just see so much better farm and maybe just map presence overall that it felt like the Weavers just didn't know how to respond.
Yeah, and now that we finished this game, we finished the other game, both of these top seeds have now fallen. We actually have, you know, in that Group C, this Wardens team that was maybe the David in this Goliath matchup against the number 2 seed. They play up to the par of the Weavers, and they actually are the better team today. And it only takes them 2 games to actually win this. And this game specifically, I mean, across the board, I think this Wardens team has played a great tournament so far. We get to see them again tomorrow. But, I mean, so far, Wardens have really impressed me, and I think that Storm team also was really impressive.
And that's, especially when you go and you look back on it, especially, like, for anyone who wasn't in tune with the phase, like, the Valkyries, you know, they eat their first loss today, right? So it's like, okay, it's been months since that's happened for them. And then if you go to the opposite side, the Storm, which I guess is maybe the best team to mention, the Wardens were right there in the middle, just a little behind. I say just a little, but a couple wins, set wins specifically behind the Weavers. So this was a huge thing to overcome for them, and as a 2-0, that's important. They go to Group C, and the Weavers will now take on the Scorpions, which, based on what we've seen, it's not a sure thing, so you have to be careful there. Winner of that one will join the Wardens and go to Group C. Loser is eliminated. That's going to be a matchup that we watch tomorrow, and you're going to want to make sure that you tune in those first 2 to see who's eliminated, as well as the last 2 to see who's in Group C, things like that. And speaking of which, you can see the Wardens are joining the Storm, as you had mentioned earlier, from Group A. Storm were able to find their win over the Valkyries, again, deliver the Valkyries, I believe, first loss of the phase, period. So a huge win, not only for them, but they were also tied at the very, very, very bottom. So to go to Group C for the Storm, they've got things together. The question is, will the Valkyries recover? Will the Sages surprise us tomorrow? Again, that one's going to be in the morning to see who gets eliminated, as well as who joins the Storm, the Wardens, and that other team from Group B going into Group C. Then you can just memorize this layout of the bracket because it's going to be the exact same thing, but with just the last 4 teams. Double elim, you kind of get a renewed lease on life if you were down in the bottom bracket. If you were up on the top, it's just the small reset, and you have to figure it out. Keep on winning. 2 teams from there go home. 2 teams from there go to the qualifiers in January, on January 4th. So a lot of fun still to be had. 2 more days for this NA playoffs, but for now, that's been myself. That's been Inbound. And of course, thank you all so much for watching. From everyone back in production, everyone here at hi-rez Studios, we hope we'll see you again tomorrow. Have a good day.